Welcome back to Hardball. As I said, there's two big stories out tonight. First, Donald Trump picked Exxon CEO Rex Tillerson, you love that name, Rex, to be the next Secretary of State. Tillerson's Russian ties could cause some problems, however, for his confirmation, especially among Republican hawks like John McCain, Lindsey Graham, and Marco Rubio. They don't like Russia. Anyway, tonight, the New York Times has a bombshell report about the scope of Russian hacking. The FBI knew Russia was hacking the Democratic National Committee as far back as September of last year. Let's bring in the Hardball Roundtable with so much to talk about. Heidi Przybyla, senior politics reporter for USA Today. Hugh Hewitt, the host of the Hugh Hewitt Show on Salem Radio Networks and an MSNBC contributor. And Michael Crowley is senior foreign affairs correspondent for Politico. Heidi, let's talk about Tillerson. I never really thought about the guy or ever heard of him. He's not on my scope.
No one has.
I do think I learned one thing, that the Rockefeller family still has a role in Exxon. I forgot about that whole relationship, and that he was almost kept from having both titles, CEO and president, all that. Who is this guy? And what's he got to do with taking? He's going to fill the role of Thomas Jefferson and James Baker and George Shultz.
Well, he's going to have to answer those questions before Congress, because they have some serious questions. And it's not even so much about Tillerson. It's about what he represents in terms of a potentially monumental shift in terms of our policy vis-a-vis Russia, which has been since World War II to create a whole global institutions and diplomacy to serve as a bulwark against Russian aggression. If you look at what we do know about Tillerson, it's that he supports easing those sanctions against Ukraine. And this comes at a time, or against Russia in terms of Ukraine and their aggression against Ukraine. And this comes at a time when we are just at the very beginning of scratching the surface of what this cyber attack on us really looks like and really means. And it may be a time when we need somebody who's going to have a really stiff, strong policy towards Russia, depending on what we find.
You know, we get in trouble over the years. We all know this. It's when Dean Acheson draws a line of defense in the North Asia that doesn't include Korea. So all of a sudden the Koreans get invaded because we said we weren't going to do it. April Glaspie somehow tells Saddam Hussein, well, it's a border issue, we're really not getting. Next thing you know, we're in there with everything we got, with Desert Sword, Desert Storm, because we blew it, because the diplomats didn't make it clear a priori, this is what we'll fight for. So what you really want is a guy that can tell Kim Jong-un, that guy with the weird haircut, you got to tell him up front, through whatever means you can, don't play around with nuclear weapons on our watch, because we'll find a way of blowing you up personally. We will get to you, and you will wish you hadn't done this. So how do we send those? Who is this guy capable of that kind of diplomacy? Tillerson.
Well, the answer to that question is yes. But then you've got Donald Trump with his Twitter account, and who knows what he's going to say there. So that's going to be a very complicated situation. But by all accounts, yeah, Tillerson is a highly competent diplomat. I mean, he's been a corporate diplomat, but this guy is a top flight when it comes to negotiating with foreign governments, doing deals with them, making clear what he means. I mean, I don't think anyone is doubting his expertise, his qualifications, his intelligence. I think Heidi is exactly right, that this is going to be a kind of proxy war for Donald Trump's desire to reshape our relations with Russia. So people are really focused on Rex Tillerson's relationship with Vladimir Putin.
Does he understand, Hugh, here, I'll get into a fight with you because I know it's coming. Does he understand when you're trying to cut a deal with the Saudis, and you're trying to deal with the Saudis and the Jordanians and al-Sisi in Egypt and the Emirates, you're trying to cut something to deal with the quartet over there, and then you move the American embassy to Jerusalem right in their face. The one thing they've always said, please don't do, because we care about that holy site as much as the Jewish people do, don't take sides. What happens then? Does he understand the importance of this fragile relationship deal we have over there?
Before he took over Russian operations, he ran Yemen operations, which is like going to Apache country in 1890. So I think he has got great depth in the region. But like you, I have never seen him on television. I've never actually heard him. So when I don't know of someone, and perhaps you guys do this, I look to their references. You mentioned this earlier. Bob Gates, Condi Rice, Jim Baker,
they all
Dick
work
Cheney.
for him, though. They all work for him.
I dismiss that.
They all got paid by him.
I think the fact that they would stand up and say, Dick Cheney's a patriot, Jim Baker's a patriot, Condi Rice isn't going to recommend somebody who doesn't know the world.
But you would say this if it was a liberal doing this? If a progressive, had hired somebody, had recommended somebody, said, yeah, but they're all on the payroll, you wouldn't make that an issue?
And the very best recommendation I got was from a DepSec in the Obama administration who said they've been dealing with him for years. He's tough, smart, conservative.
Who's the DepSec?
DepSec of Energy, Dan Poneman, told me a wonderful, wonderful human deputy secretary. Told me a great man, absolutely the best thing we could do.
Bureaucrat.
How do you pivot overnight from being, really since the Reagan administration, a business diplomat who is mostly concerned about profits and about cutting deals? You're very transactional. You have billions of dollars of money tied up in these sanctions in Russia, and then overnight all of a sudden you have a totally different set of calculations.
You've got 70,000 employees. You've got 70,000 employees around the world.
Let her finish.
Well, no, I was just going to say that have to do with national security interests and the interests of, in terms of public policy making on behalf of our country versus a company's profit.
The roundtable staying with us, and up next, these three will tell me something I don't know. We're back with the Hardball Roundtable. Heidi, tell me something I don't know.
We are getting no indications that Trump is actually going to divest, as the ethics experts are urging him to do. So what does that mean in terms of day one? What's the worst possible scenario here, both in terms of national security and potentially violating the Constitution? All of these Trump buildings are going to need added security. They immediately become terrorist targets, potential terrorism targets.
Why?
Because his name is on the building, and if somebody wants to make a statement that becomes an obvious target, they may need additional security. Foreign governments have to provide that security. That becomes a constitutional issue and obviously a national security issue.
Trouble, trouble.
3 for 1. John Bolton will be confirmed. Rand Paul's a party of 1. Number 2.
He will be confirmed for what?
He will be confirmed for either the Director of National Intelligence or Deputy Secretary of State. Number 2, Scott Pruitt, the Attorney General.
I make a prediction. He never will to anything. Go ahead.
Scott Pruitt, the Attorney General of Oklahoma, is not a climate skeptic. He is a Federalist, an extraordinary constitutional lawyer. He'll be confirmed. And number 3, Andy Puzder has gotten the most blowback, and not from the people who are worried about robots, because he's not actually for robots. He said that's what will happen if California doesn't change their laws. He's getting blowback from anti-immigration hardliners, and the franchise world, which numbers in the tens of thousands, will rise up to get him confirmed. All 3 will be confirmed.
Okay.
We're very focused on Rex Tillerson's relationship with Russia and Vladimir Putin. His confirmation would be taken as a very positive signal by the Gulf Arab Sunni oil-producing states, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, those countries which have had pretty rocky relations with President Barack Obama. They see a U.S. tilt towards Shia Iran. Would be very reassuring.